I want to present here things that I've been discovering in my experience. I'm very lucky because I have and had partners that were absolutely fantastic to allow me to discover everything about homosexuality. For a long time, for me, I was not homosexual. And I had a girlfriend, and this girlfriend, Isabel, it was not fantastic. We were often arguing because she was quite jealous and criticizing a lot of things, but she loved my body. And I quite appreciated her body. I am a champion in Olympic gymnastics. So of course, my body is quite perfect. I am full of thin muscles, no fat at all. And for my practice and for my pleasure, I'm always epilated totally. So I am really with a very welcoming body. Unfortunately, I always dreamt of a partner that would be super active. And Isabel was not at all like this. She was extremely passive. I loved her body and her skin, but I didn't like at all a passive way. Passive way on the physical aspect and super active way on the negative aspect, jealousy, arguing, criticizing, refusing a lot of things. But at that time I thought that it was normal as a man to have a girlfriend. I was not very happy with this association, but I felt that I had to do that because of the social pressure. In gymnastics, I loved to practice with my friends, to be with strong friends, strong muscles, and I loved, honestly, the after session, where after that we're all going to have showers together. And it was classical to ask a friend to wash my back, and I was doing the same to some others. I was looking at these people, they were looking at me, and this time of the showers was fantastic. To tell you that I was excited by this, no. I wouldn't tell you that because I was not allowed in my mind to think like this. But the pleasure of touching, looking at perfect body was something totally fantastic. I wanted to go further into the comprehension of the body, and in the gymnastic, we had teachers who spoke also about chi and ki and prana, things like this, the energy of the body. And my body was burning of energy. My sexuality was quite frustrated, and I felt my body that was ready to explode of energy, because a short while ago still I was even younger, adult but very young, so full of power, full of muscles, and full of sexual energy, full of desires, and at the same time not able to find out the way to express this. So I was lucky enough to go to a class with Frank. Frank was an Italian guy, he's still an Italian guy, very handsome and very fit. And very quickly, after following some lessons with him, he saw that my body was perfect. He saw that I was very motivated and I wanted to understand more. At the end of the lessons, I was talking to him, asking about energy, about sexuality, about tantra, about things like this. And he invited me to practice a special session where it was just about the position of the spine, the energy of the body, but in a way to develop more the tantra energy, to be aware and in contact with this fantastic source of energy that is the sexuality. And when he started to invite me, he was very clear. He said, when we do that, we practice just both of us. And we practice naked. And when he started to speak about this, I told him that I was not gay, that I don't want to go to something else. And he said, no, it's not about homosexuality. It is about understanding the energy, the sexuality, the comprehension of your body. And there, I have to add something at the introduction of this book, which is that I'm going to explain at one point some stuff that I discovered about philosophy, spirituality, and even intense sexuality that, of course, I will not be able to present on YouTube. So, when I go to some impossible topics for YouTube, respecting the limitations of YouTube, I will invite you somewhere else so that you can have the follow-up of the story, or the part that are forbidden on YouTube. But I'm going to do my best because I would like to give a maximum, to present a maximum on YouTube. And really, when I have no choice because it's too intense, on the revelations or on the practice, I will invite you somewhere else. Anyway, in the practice, I was invited to work naked with Frank. And I loved to look at his body, perfect in muscles, thin, exciting, without being really exciting for me, fantastically beautiful, harmonious, pleasant. And I learned to be happy to expose also my own beauty. We're doing a yoga, a lot of positions of yoga, of asana, and sometimes Frank was helping me to work better. So he was pushing my back or putting his chest on my back to push me more in Paschimottanasana, a posture on the legs and other movements like this with the legs open. And I could feel his sweat, his body on my body, his breathing, the contact of him, the attention that he had to push me to practice better. We're also practicing Tai Chi Chuan. And there, Frank was insisting on the position of my pelvis and the position of my spine. So very often he was going behind me to insist that my head was in a good position, that my spine was completely straight. And he was catching my ass and the pelvis just above my sex to oblige me to turn my pelvis a bit in front so that my coccyx was really, the extension of the coccyx could have been finishing between my 2 feet to have a real good position. And when I was in Qigong, which is a position to stimulate the energy, he was around me and he was taking some special gloves, very soft, like sort of sponges, and he was cuddling my back and my chest and my arms, and he said, it is to stimulate the circulation of energy in your body. He was also working on my legs, on my ass, between my legs, nearly touching my sex without touching it. And I could feel in this position of Qigong, my body that was exploding of energy. Sometimes we were relaxing and he was also massaging my back while I was lying down on the floor, on the mat. And it happened to me sometimes to have an extremely strong erection on the floor, and I was quite happy to hide it. that the position could allow me not to show anything. And sometimes when we had to stand up, I was on purpose taking a position where I could hide my strong erection to speak and ask some questions, to focus on that so that I could stand up without showing anything, because after a little while I could relax my sex. And this magical atmosphere with the music that was always soft, temperature always warm, Frank that was always super professional, attentive, beautiful, nice, full of care, massaging me very softly from time to time. All of this gave to this room and to this session something that was totally fantastic. When I was going back and meeting my girlfriend again, I was ready to explode of desires. And every time, as Isabel was quite passive and waiting for everything, it was very hard for me to get excited. And very often, the explosion of my body was cooling down. In the night, when I was at home, because we're not living together, I got sometimes so fantastically excited that even in the night I was waking up with all my body ready for something that didn't happen because I was alone. And going back to the sessions with Frank, it was absolutely terribly exciting. Frank was looking at me and saying, "Well, Stef, you seem to be quite smiling today, full of prana, full of energy. And now it will be time for you to get naked. But because I want you to develop more this intensity of fire in your stomach that you learn to control at the same time, I am going to undress you myself." And then he was going to me and putting down the jacket, taking off my t-shirt, and gently, very softly, putting down my trousers and my underwear. And when he was doing that, he was always cuddling a little bit, very softly, nearly not touching. And this feeling of doing that was extremely exciting. And then he told me, now you have to do the same. Learn to be soft, to be full of desires, but to control your desires. Be a fire that is not burning the others. And in a very nervous way, I started to do the same and to undress him. When I was doing so, I could smell his skin, his body. And he was insisting on me touching him just a little bit, very softly like a cuddle. And I was insisting on his body, nearly not touching his body. His nipples were very erected, and sometimes when I was massaging him, I could feel his strong nipples underneath my fingers. Then I was going down on the trousers, putting the trousers in the underwear down, and I was very surprised to realize that the smell of his sex was very troubling, that it was a strong, fantastic stimulation. And at the same time, it was fantastic because we're facing something that was forbidden. He never said that he was gay. He never told me that we would go into something homosexual. So it was so soft and so reassuring, exciting, and forbidden at the same time. Then again, we started to practice in harmony with the music, doing soft movements. And he started to teach me acrobatic yoga, where one posture is adapted to the other one so that both together will create a posture. Being naked, sometimes I was very close to his face. Sometimes my face was very close to his ass or to his sex. And it was very hard to resist and not to get super excited. I couldn't get excited. I was not supposed to be excited, but I was burning. And there, Frank was insisting on developing this fire completely. He said, I know perfectly well that you are full of desires for me. I feel it. Your body is fire as my body is fire. And then, while he was explaining this, he came to hug me strongly, and I could feel all my body against his body, and all my sex against his sex. And I was so troubled. I was embarrassed, didn't dare to take his back, and at one point I started to hug him as well, and to feel his muscles rolling on his back while he was cuddling my own back. And I started to have the beginning of an erection, and I was thinking, no erection, no erection, no erection, because it was so hard not to manifest this. And after that, he went behind me at the end of the session, and he started to cuddle my back and my ass, and started to cuddle my chest, and passing his hands everywhere. When he had taken his special gloves of sort of sponge, he cuddled my chest and insisted and turned on my nipples that were very erected as well. And that was an intense pleasure. And while he was doing that, I couldn't help it, and I started to have a very strong erection. And after that, he heard me, and he saw the very strong erection, and he smiled. He said, you don't have to worry about these physical manifestations. They are the fire that I tried to teach you that is exploding more and more in your body. But what you are going to learn is to develop this fire, not to always have sex in a stupid way, but to control it, to accumulate all this power, so that you become fantastic in gymnastics, that you become fantastic in your life, that you become fantastic in everything that you do, when you walk, when you look at somebody, when you shake hand to somebody. And then I started to explain to Frank that my sexuality, that was totally exploding in the practice, was quite dead in front of Isabel. And then Frank smiled and said that maybe my path of sexuality was not with a girl. He said, did you ever consider to have something with a man? And when he said that, I looked at him intensely, wondering, is it an invitation? And Frank started to walk away, and he told me, you have to see with yourself. You have to feel where this fire goes, how you feel. With me, I have a lot of techniques to relax you and to excite you and to stimulate your fire. Does it mean that only the man can be exciting for you? That my practice is bringing you intense sexuality? Yes, of course. That's what I try to do, to stimulate your fire. And that's what I do with you. That's what we do together. Because by stimulating your fire, I stimulate also my fire. And when Frank said that, I was hesitating. Shall I try to do a move to him? Shall I try to show him something? And when he spoke like this, my erection was even stronger. But Frank didn't show anything special to me. At the same time, so exciting so connected to me, but not going any further in other practice. Insisted and told me, next time that you come, I'm going to teach you a very special work of Qigong on the nipples. The nipples are very important to stimulate the fire in you. And there are some special exercises to stimulate the awareness and the irrigation of your nipples that will make your body even more a pure fire, a pure bomb of fire, of intensity. This intensity that instead of exploding too easily will become a part of your own fire, of your own energy, of your own chi that will allow you to accomplish things. You must learn, Stef, not to look at sex in a way that it is bad or guilty because maybe you are more attracted to men. You have to see and to learn that the sexuality is a fantastic battery of intensity in the complete existence of everything you do. I was obliged to reveal to Frank that since I had been practicing with him, I became better and better in gymnastics, that I wanted to practice more, that I wanted to go to the end of my muscles, of my abilities, and that I wasn't doing so much to get totally tired. I became very good. So good that in the team where I was, they started to talk to me to maybe be invited in the English team in England, so that I could maybe go on a higher level, on a national level. People were even more looking at me. In the shower, when I was exhausted, I could invite people to massage a bit more my back because I had pushed so much, and some people said that I was becoming absolutely fantastic, that I had an intensity in my muscles, in my gaze, in my concentration that were totally fantastic. I could see that the teaching of Frank was really working, and I became so happy about this sexuality, this intensity of sexuality that was not a sexuality to jump on people, but a sexuality to transcend my complete existence. And that's really what I want to give you in this first presentation. Sexuality is not bad. Sexuality is not a way to lose your existence and to waste your energy. Instead of keeping your sexuality on a very low level because you're afraid to waste it immediately, learn to intensify it and to keep it. It doesn't mean that after that you mustn't have sex, but less often and more with a very strong motivation, so that everything becomes like a pure miracle of the fire transcending everything in your existence. That's what I started to learn with Frank. That's what I started to discover in my practice of gymnastics. That's what I started to discover in my future possibility to evolve and to go even to the English Olympic team, and maybe one day even further. Such a success because I dreamt of intensity. Parallelly, the life with Isabel was less and less interesting, and the more I was successful, the more she was boring, jealous, and aggressive. But I was so happy to feel a good citizen, not homosexual, but terribly excited, terribly happy to discover everything that I was practicing with Frank, that each day was a new step into something marvelous and fantastic.